this is Debbie Lynn Toomey, Tufts Medical Center's Injury Prevention Coordinator, and you're watching Aging Strong, which is found under Health Links. Aging Strong is sponsored by the Quincy Health Department. Today's topic is on mosquitoes and everything that you probably would need to know, plus more, about mosquitoes. It's such a fascinating topic that we don't really think about until, the warmer weather starts coming around and we find ourselves kind of doing one of these type of Macarena type movements in our body because there are these little pests that keeps biting us. And so we have a specialist on today. Her name is Caitlin O'Donnell, and she is, your title, entomologist.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm the entomologist. I work for Norfolk County Mosquito Control, and I do all of the mosquito surveillance for Norfolk County. We do a lot of mosquito control and prevention work as well throughout all of our membership towns.
Wow. Okay. First of all, I never knew there was such a person who did your type of work. And it does make sense, right? To make sure that, the mosquitoes don't kind of overtake the whole area. So can you just, I know you have a great presentation to share with us, and it's really, I can't wait to learn more about mosquitoes and what you do. Can you just share with us, what got you into this line of work?
Yeah, sure. Well, I have always been interested in science. And in going to school, I studied biology and started getting some summer jobs that were in the field of biology and kind of fell into jobs that did a lot of insect surveillance. And then after graduating, I decided I wanted to go to graduate school to get a higher degree in entomology, and actually studied an invasive agricultural and forest pest. So I didn't work with mosquitoes quite yet. I did have a job right out of college monitoring West Nile virus in the Washington, D.C. area. So that was my first introduction to mosquitoes and public health. And then after finishing my master's degree, I was looking for a job. And really in entomology, people, for as much as I love insects, most people don't. So there's always going to be work in kind of trying to control the insects that people don't want around. So I found this job, and I've been here for 9 years.
Wow, that's amazing. Amazing. So I know you have a presentation to share with us, and, as you're, putting the share screen up, I'll just kind of, think of other questions that other people might want to start asking you along the way.
Sure. My name is Caitlin O'Donnell. I'm the entomologist at Norfolk County Mosquito Control District, and I'll be talking today all about mosquitoes, how we can protect ourselves from mosquito bites, and some of the work that we do in Norfolk County as well. So first, I'd just like to start with the general question, why do we have mosquito control? Well, mosquitoes carry a lot of different types of diseases that have a lot of impacts on human health. And there is this quote from an article a long time ago that researchers estimate that mosquitoes have been responsible for half the deaths in human history. So they really do impact us in a very big way. So what is a mosquito? A mosquito is a type of insect. They are a type of fly. They're in the same order as all flies. And really the big takeaway from this slide is that I like to point out there are over 3,500 known species of mosquitoes. So that's a lot of diversity, a lot of different types of mosquitoes. Of those 3,500 known species, only a few hundred actually vector diseases, and even fewer bite humans. So there are a lot of mosquitoes out there that never are interested in biting a human at all. They feed on something totally different. So when we're talking about mosquito control, we're really talking about focusing on these few specific species that are going to impact our health and our way of life. There are plenty of species out there that don't affect us at all that we don't need to worry about. And Massachusetts itself has a lot of mosquito diversity. So a lot of people think, oh, it's a mosquito, we just have one, especially in more cold environments where the insect diversity generally is lower. But in Massachusetts, we have over 50 species of mosquitoes. And these are some photos of some examples of different species that we have that can be pretty common. There's one on here, Uranotonia sapphirina, that has a beautiful blue pattern on it, and it feeds on worms. It doesn't feed on humans at all. There's this very large mosquito all the way on the left part of the slide, Toxorhynchites rutilis septentrionalis. It's called the elephant mosquito, and it's very metallic, it's very large, and it is doesn't take a blood meal at all. It actually is a predator of other mosquitoes in its larval stage. So there are a lot of different types of mosquitoes that do a lot of different really cool things, and they're not all bad and out to get us. But then again, you know, the rest of the mosquitoes on this slide do love to bite people and can carry diseases. So there is that. And they have all different types of striping patterns and wing patterns. There's a lot of diversity in how they look, as well as in how many species we have. So I'll talk about the mosquito life cycle. Knowing about these different stages of mosquitoes' lives is really important for the control work that we do, because we need to know what stage they're at what time of year, in order to effectively control them. So mosquito eggs are laid either on water in rafts of 100 to 300-ish, or they're laid singly near water in an area that will be flooded. And once those eggs are flooded, they hatch. So mosquitoes need standing water for 3 out of their 4 life stages. Standing water is very important to the survival of a mosquito. That is why we talk so often about making sure that you're emptying anything that is containing water and allowing it to sit there, because you will be breeding mosquitoes. Now, mosquitoes will hatch into their larval stage, where they're swimming around in the water column, they're feeding, and they're growing and going through 4 stages of larval development, getting a little bit bigger each time. I often get questions about how long this takes, or how long a mosquito lives for, or how long each of these life stages lasts. And it really depends. Mosquitoes are cold-blooded. So the warmer it is, the faster they develop. The colder it is, the slower they develop. So in this larval stage, when they're swimming around in the water, we can find mosquito larvae as early as February in Massachusetts. It's pretty cold out then. The mosquito larva takes a really long time. It takes weeks, months to develop into the adult stage when it's that cold out. But in the heat of summer, in those weeks in July where it was over 90 degrees, it can take as little as 5 days, less than a week, for the mosquitoes to go through this whole development stage where they're in the water. So that's why we say it's important to continually empty out any of that water. After they go through their larval stage, they develop into the pupal stage. So this is the same idea as when a caterpillar turns into a cocoon or a chrysalis before becoming a moth or a butterfly. They are using this stage to completely rearrange their whole body, to go from looking like a larva, which is this little wriggly worm thing, into looking like the adult mosquitoes that we know, with legs and wings and a biting mouthpiece and antenna. So you can see how different they look in their adult stage from the larval stage. The pupal stage still occurs in standing water. The larva and pupal stage, they both can move, they both can swim, but they're not super strong swimmers, and they can't hold on to anything. So that's why they need that still stagnant water. If the water is moving, they're not going to be able to survive there. So if it's a stream, even if it's a bird bath that has a fountain feature, if that water is moving, they're not going to want to use it. So that's an important piece for when you're looking at mosquito habitat. After they go through their pupal stage and emerge as an adult, they are often looking for a blood meal. Only female mosquitoes bite. The females need the protein from that blood meal in order to develop their eggs so that they can mate, lay eggs, and start the process all over again. So male mosquitoes do not bite. You can see in this photo the difference between the male and the female mosquito. The males tend to be a little bit smaller and thinner, and then they have very, very fuzzy antennae. So that's how they're able to find female mosquitoes of the same species. They're picking up on odor cues as well as the sound of the female's wing beats. So once they find each other and mate, the female can lay eggs and start this cycle all over again. Another question I often get is how many times this happens in a year. It depends on the species. Some species we have can have multiple generations per year. In warmer climates, in the south, in places where it's a lot warmer, they can have many, many generations of mosquitoes all year long because they don't have a winter like we do, where mosquitoes have to be dormant. Some mosquitoes only have one generation per year. So they'll come out, they'll lay their eggs, and those eggs will wait until next spring in order to start that cycle over again. And mosquitoes overwinter in many different ways, depending on the species. There are some species that overwinter as adults, so they come into our homes or somewhere that's kind of protected in the wild, and then they rest and overwinter that way. Some mosquitoes overwinter as eggs, and some overwinter as larvae. So they're in some kind of permanent water habitat that stays wet year round, and they're able to withstand cold and freezing, and they overwinter that way. So there are a lot of different tricks and methods that mosquitoes use to survive in these different types of habitats and in different climates.
Caitlin, before you advance your slide, so just a couple of questions. Are there,
Sure.
you mentioned there are over 50 species of mosquitoes in the Massachusetts area.
Yep.
Are there species that are more prominent in certain months during
Yes.
the spring, the summer? And is that also how you're able to kind of control the amount of mosquitoes of those type of species from
Yep.
growing?
Yeah, so each species kind of has its own adaptation. And so some species come out in the spring. They start emerging in May, they really peak in June, and then they kind of peter off and we don't see them for the rest of the summer. Other species, like the one that is most common generally in Norfolk County, they peak right around the 4th of July. Their numbers are really high at that time, and they only have one generation per year. So then they start to peter off after that. And then other species just kind of are fluctuating all summer long, depending on habitat and water level. So it really just depends on the species. And they do have, different times of the summer where they're very prominent.
And once a mosquito bites a human, does that end their life cycle, or they're able to bite other humans?
No, it depends on the species again. So some species will only get to have one blood meal, lay their eggs, and then that's it. But a lot of mosquitoes can take multiple blood meals and lay eggs multiple times.
Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, wow. So interesting. And then, so one more question about when they overwinter. You said sometimes they go into people's homes, or sometimes they remain outside during the wintertime. And, as you know, it gets really cold in New England, sometimes freezing temperatures. Would they be dormant and be alive in a frozen pool of water?
They can be if they're overwintering as a larva. Yep. And oftentimes the species that overwinter as larvae, they have very specific habitats where they're kind of deep down in roots and are protected. So the water may not fully freeze down there. Or they are attached to a plant and in mud. So they're kind of protected that way, but they can withstand freezing. Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. They're very resilient.
They are. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So they use all of these different adaptations to take advantage of many different types of habitats. So these photos are just 4 examples of mosquito habitats that we have in Norfolk County. So you'll see on the top left, just a classic woodland swamp. We see a lot of this in the springtime. It will flood and then kind of dry out as the drier summer weather comes along. Mosquitoes also can utilize man-made containers to breed. So this tire pile here on the top right is an example of that. Or on the bottom left, these buckets and children's toys that are left outside and collect water. Mosquitoes can use those as their water source in order to breed. And then on the bottom right, we have a salt marsh. So Norfolk County has a few towns that have salt marshes along the coast, and these can produce really high numbers of mosquito species that are adapted to live in the salt marsh environment. We have 4 different species that can utilize varying parts of the marsh. So they are so versatile because they have very specific adaptations. They're small, so they can use a very little amount of water to breed. There are some photos of some extreme photos of this here on the slide. Here's a little tiny drop of water with a mosquito pupa in it. And then on the top, there's an overturned bottle cap with a lot of larvae in it. So they can use a very small amount of water in order to go through all of these life stages. They breathe through a siphon, so they take in oxygen from the air like we do, rather than dissolved oxygen in the water like a fish would. So they can take advantage of really gross, yucky water habitats that maybe doesn't have a lot of oxygen, that's not flowing, someplace really mucky and muddy with high organic content. They have a very fast development. As long as it's warm enough, they can go through this whole cycle in standing water in 5 to 7 days in our area. And then some of their eggs can remain dormant until they become wet. So last summer, we had all of that rain all summer long. We had a really wet summer. And in Norfolk County, we had a lot of floodplain outbreaks. So these are mosquitoes that are adapted to live along the floodplains of, in our area, the Neponset River and the Charles River. And so these eggs had been laid in the ground next to the river while the river was low. Then the river flooded and reached those eggs, and those eggs could have just been waiting for years until they were flooded and then hatched. So these eggs allow them to survive times of the year when we're in drought and just are sitting there waiting to get wet again and to be able to hatch. So they have a lot of different adaptations to take advantage of all of these wetland habitats that we have in our area. And I also just want to point out 2 new species that have been moving in. The one on top is called Aedes albopictus. It has that one white stripe along its thorax. And this mosquito is established in Norfolk County now, especially in Quincy. We do have many sites where this mosquito is active. They are more of a tropical mosquito. They're non-native to North America, and they've slowly been expanding their range with the changes in seasons and climate change. And they are a daytime biter. So this is one thing that sets them apart. We do have other mosquitoes that bite during the day, but these ones especially bite during the day when it's very hot in the height of summer. And they're pretty distinctive. So they're black with that very stark white striping. And they're something that we've been really monitoring since 2016, trying to figure out where in our county they are, how fast they've been moving in and establishing. The mosquito on the bottom is called Aedes aegypti. This one has not been found in Massachusetts yet, but it has been slowly moving north. It's established in the mid-Atlantic area. Again, this one likes a lot warmer temperatures. It's from a tropical climate. And these both are mosquitoes that in the tropics can transmit a lot of different types of diseases that make people very sick. So there are 2 mosquitoes that we've really been keeping an eye on and trying to get a handle on exactly where they are. So mosquitoes can carry a wide range of different types of diseases. I'm going to be focusing on West Nile virus and Eastern equine encephalitis today because these are the 2 viruses that we test for in Massachusetts and that we find activity of in our areas. So we'll go over briefly just how these viruses cycle in the environment. West Nile virus is pretty common in Massachusetts. We do find it almost every summer. It tends to do better in hotter, drier years and is more of an urban-suburban virus. So we're finding it a lot more in areas that are more densely populated. It is a virus that has a reservoir host of birds. So mosquitoes are biting birds all summer long, and that virus is building in the bird population. A mosquito will bite a bird, can pick up that virus from the bird, and then can transmit it to another bird when it bites that bird. We as humans and then other animals are accidental hosts, as this chart calls us. So a mosquito can bite a bird, pick up the virus from the bird, and then can bite us, can pass the disease to us. But a mosquito cannot bite us and pick up West Nile virus. So this is an important factor to point out because other diseases operate a little bit differently. So we can get sick from West Nile virus, but a mosquito, if we have it, cannot pick up the virus from us. They can only pick it up from a bird. Eastern equine encephalitis works much the same way. A mosquito vector is amplifying this virus in the bird population all summer long. And then it takes a bridge vector that likes to bite both birds and people that transmits it from the bird to people or horses. We often will have horse cases as well, although we do have a horse vaccine that people can use to protect their horses. So it takes that mosquito that is more of a generalist, that doesn't only feed on birds, to bite a bird and then bite a human, and that's how we get the diseases. And I do just want to point out, so we find these diseases in different areas. If you've been paying attention to the virus activity throughout this summer, we've been getting a lot of triple E positives from the Southeast and from kind of central Massachusetts, whereas West Nile virus has been popping up pretty much all over, but we tend to hear more about it in the greater Boston area. And that's because the primary vector for each of these diseases takes advantage of different habitats. So the primary vector for Eastern equine encephalitis is called Culicidum melanura, and they really like to breed in cedar swamps or red maple swamps. And they need these habitats to be wet year round because they overwinter as larvae. So they're really sensitive to, if we have a dry winter and these habitats dry out, their populations would be sensitive to that. They tend to be found in more rural areas or suburban areas that may be close to this type of habitat. So that's kind of explains why we find Eastern equine encephalitis more in certain areas than others. Whereas the West Nile virus vector, Culex pipiens, can take advantage of a wide range of habitats. It can breed in containers. It can breed in catch basins in along the streets. It can also breed in semi-permanent water habitats like a retention pond, things like that. So they have a wider range of habitat, and they're more closely associated with people, so they're more found in suburban and urban environments. So that's kind of why we find West Nile more predominantly in the areas around our cities. So those are just some differences in those species and why we find the viruses in different areas.
Caitlin, question about, you said the mosquitoes' primary hosts are birds. So do you, as part of your role, do you also take a look at the bird habitat as well, or the bird's health that are typical hosts for these mosquitoes, and just to see if they carry any type of viruses that the mosquitoes might get from them?
So we, when West Nile virus was first introduced into North America in 1999, that was something that was done pretty regularly. We would look for dead birds and test the dead birds. If you kind of remember that, there was a lot of messaging around that. And now we don't really do that as much. Some other mosquito control districts that are in other parts of the country, mostly in the South, they will use sentinel chickens actually to monitor how the virus is growing in the bird population. But we don't really do that up here. We are able to test our mosquitoes for these diseases, and then that kind of allows us to not need to test the birds, which is a little bit more difficult and takes a lot more work.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah. So I have included the current, as of yesterday, August 20th, the current risk maps for both Eastern equine encephalitis and West Nile virus. So these can be found on the Massachusetts Department of Public Health website. And I encourage everyone to just keep an eye on this website and see how the risk levels are changing. And it will, if you hover on the website, if you hover your mouse over your community, it will give you what the risk level is and what the suggestions are for any behavioral changes you may need to make in order to protect yourself. So currently for Eastern equine encephalitis, quinsy is at remote risk level, and that's because we don't tend to find the species of mosquito that's the primary vector in that area, and we don't tend to find virus in that area. However, other parts of Norfolk County are at low risk because we do sometimes pick up that virus in other communities. And then you can see that Worcester and Bristol and Plymouth counties are at both moderate, high, and critical risks. And these all have different suggestions for how to kind of augment your behavior in order to avoid mosquito bites so that you can protect yourself. And we will go over some of those in just a moment. So here's the West Nile virus risk map. You can see that quinsy is at moderate risk right now for West Nile virus, and that's because we have found mosquito pools that have been positive for West Nile virus in quinsy. So we know that the virus is there. We know that mosquitoes are picking it up from birds. So that's just something to keep in mind, and there are specific suggestions that Massachusetts Department of Public Health and we would like to share just so that you know how you can better protect yourself. And you can see that the risk level of moderate is in a lot of the state. So it is low in much of the middle of the state, but there are a lot of communities that are at moderate risk. So it's important that everyone keeps checking this website, make sure that you're up to date with where the virus is and where the risk levels have been increased. So when you hover your mouse over quinsy for the West Nile virus map, Department of Public Health does have some specific guidelines to help protect you. So the fact that the risk level is moderate, it means that West Nile virus has already been found in the community. So in the case of quinsy, it has been found in multiple mosquito pools. And some things you can do to prevent infection and just to avoid mosquito bites is to keep checking the website, make sure you're aware of what the risk is in your community, make sure that you have your screens repaired and so that there are no ways that mosquitoes can be getting into your house. And then clean up your yard and make sure you're getting rid of mosquito breeding sites. So anywhere that's holding water for more than 5 to 7 days, you want to make sure that it's able to drain or you are regularly changing that water out. You can contact the local board of health for an issue like an unused swimming pool, because that can be a big problem and can breed a lot of mosquitoes. So for bigger things like that, you can contact local resources. It's suggested that you wear long sleeves and long pants, especially at peak mosquito biting times. So that would be dusk and dawn. And also use mosquito repellent when you're outside, especially again at those peak mosquito biting times. Use mosquito netting wherever you think it would be appropriate and to protect young children that maybe can't wear the long sleeves or avoid mosquitoes in the same way that adults can. And it's really important that you're dumping out any standing water very regularly. So DPH recommends twice per week. So this could be if you have a bird bath that doesn't have a fountain, you could be changing that water out. If you leave out dishes for a pet, you want to change that water out. Anything like that. There are a lot of different areas that can collect water. And we've been having kind of sporadic rain here and there. So if you have anything outside that does collect water, just go and check after a rain, make sure that you're emptying anything out that hasn't drained on its own. So how do we effectively control mosquitoes now that we know where they are? So in mosquito control, we use something called integrated pest management, or in our case, integrated mosquito management. This is a technique that's used in many different industries, most notably in agriculture, in mosquito control, and in other areas of public health. And what it means is that we are taking a lot of different tools, a wide array of tools for control, and combining them together to get the most effective control. So we are integrating all of these different methods in order to have a more well-rounded way of controlling these insects. So the main components are surveillance. We need to know where the mosquitoes are and at what life stage they're at in order to effectively control them. If we don't know where they are, then we can't control them. Source reduction is another big one. So this includes dumping out standing water on your property. You're getting rid of the mosquito source, the mosquito breeding habitat. But what we do here is sometimes we'll do this on a larger scale. So clearing out ditches that should be moving and draining, but are maybe blocked up by sticks and other debris. Things like that. Just keeping water moving in the habitat where it's supposed to be moving so that it's not pooling. We can also use larviciding. So this is applying a product to a water habitat in order to kill mosquito larvae before they become adults and are able to bite us. And we have many different products that are appropriate for different types of habitats that we can use. And then we also use adulticide. So that is our truck spraying program where we apply a pesticide that will kill mosquitoes that are flying at the time in the adult stage. So we're using all of these different methods to control mosquitoes at the stage that they're at and using the correct and the appropriate method at the right time. We also will do research just to make sure that all of these control methods are doing what they are supposed to be doing and what we think they're doing to control. And then we do a lot of outreach so that we can communicate everything that we're seeing in the field to the public and make sure everyone knows how to protect themselves from mosquitoes and what's going on at the time. So I'll just quickly touch. Yep.
Sorry, quick question about the larvicide and also the adulticide. Are they safe for humans? Like say, the mosquito spraying that happens routinely during, times of the year. Is it safe for humans?
Yeah. So for the larvicide, I'll touch on that first. What we use for larvicide is actually called BTI. It's a bacteria that's naturally found in the soil, and that we apply to wetlands directly. So that is when we do our helicopter application in the spring. That's usually done in April. We're applying little tiny granules of a clay or corn that has the bacteria in it. It's activated in the water, and that kills only mosquito and black fly larvae. So that's very safe. We have a couple other larvicide products that we really only use in very specific habitats. The adulticide spray that we use is a low risk adulticide spray. It's from, EPA approved and tested, and it is a general insecticide. So it can kill a lot of different types of insects, but we apply it at an extremely low rate so that we're really applying it at a rate that will kill a tiny mosquito. And we also only spray after sundown. So that's why when mosquitoes are active and when other beneficial insects are not active. So that's why we spray then. And it's also when people tend to be, at home and inside. So we're avoiding peak human activity, but it is very safe for humans and it's very tested.
Great. Thank you.
And the amount that we're applying is less than a shot glass per acre. And it is designed to float up in the air and not settle on anything. So we're really not coming into contact with it as humans when we're applying it in the way that we do.
Is there a science into how far up in the air that you do that so that they're still getting to the mosquitoes, but not having it be, affected by the ozone layer?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not going up that high. Yeah. It has about a 300-foot range. And yes, there is a lot of formulation and development that goes into it. That's all, proprietary from the producer. But yeah.
Yeah, it's very fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. So as the entomologist at Norfolk County Mosquito Control, I'm responsible for the mosquito surveillance. We are looking for mosquitoes in all life stages. We do adult and larval monitoring, as well as looking for mosquito eggs, depending on what information we're trying to get. And we use a lot of different types of traps in order to collect mosquitoes at these different stages. And they all are looking for specific species at different stages of their lives. And we have these traps spread throughout Norfolk County. We have at least one collection of traps in every single town, one of our membership towns, and we have 25 towns. So we try and get a good widespread idea of what's going on with the mosquito populations. And all of these mosquitoes are collected from the field. They're brought back. We identify them all to species so that we know if it's a mosquito that carries disease or a mosquito that doesn't carry disease, a mosquito that likes to bite people or doesn't like to bite people. And then we look at what we've collected and we decide what is appropriate to be tested for viruses. And Massachusetts Department of Public Health does the testing, the virus testing for us. And then all of that information from both our district and the districts around the state is what goes into making those risk maps that you saw earlier. So when we have mosquito pools that are positive, the Department of Public Health will let us know, we'll let boards of health know, and we'll change the risk level on the risk map depending on what we found. And when I say mosquito pool, I like to just point it out. So when you have in the news, they say they found a mosquito positive pool in this town. It means that I put a bunch of the same species into a little vial, and there could be anywhere from 10 to 50 mosquitoes in that one tube. So at least one mosquito out of the 50 was positive. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all mosquitoes are positive, but at least one was. So that kind of gives a little more context to what that means. So surveillance is just one of those tools I mentioned for integrated pest management. So just to kind of illustrate how it all works in a bigger picture, we're monitoring and investigating the population. So let's say we find a West Nile virus vector in Quincy and we submit it for diseases. We find that it's positive for West Nile. Then we choose the right intervention. Okay, we'll probably expand our surveillance and we will try to treat areas that are breeding the correct mosquito for that's transmitting West Nile. And then we'll also probably do some additional adulticiding. And then we'll evaluate, did the intervention that we chose work? And then we'll communicate everything that we're seeing to the public. So all of these things are working together in order to effectively control and get the information out there that people need in order to protect themselves. So how do we protect ourselves? There is a certain amount of personal responsibility when it comes to mosquito control. So there's a lot that you can do yourself in order to protect yourself and your family. And a way to kind of help people remember is to remember the D's of mosquito prevention. And this is coming out of the Fight the Bite campaign that has been going on for a long time. So we have dump and drain, we have dress, we have defend, and we have dusk and dawn. So remember these D's and you'll be able to protect yourself. We'll start with dump and drain. So there are a lot of areas in a residential space that can breed mosquitoes. And some of them may be places that you haven't thought of. So one big one is clogged rain gutters. If there's a lot of leaves and there's water collecting in your rain gutter, it's important to get that cleaned out because that can breed mosquitoes. Tires and leaky hoses. A pond that doesn't have either moving water or natural predators like fish, frogs. Potted plant saucers. Buckets and barrels, anywhere that water is standing can breed water. It can breed mosquitoes. So you want to make sure that you are either draining, dumping, or changing out that water regularly, or applying something to it that will prevent mosquitoes from breeding there, which there are a lot of options for that you can get at hardware stores, Home Depot, places like that. Next is dress and defend. So make sure that you are dressing appropriately with long sleeves, long pants, and loose fitting clothing is really important for mosquitoes specifically because they have that proboscis, that needle-like mouth part that is trying to pierce through your skin. So if your clothing is flush against your skin, they will be able to pierce through that clothing and get to your skin. Whereas if your clothing is more loose, it'll be a little bit more difficult for them. So that's one added barrier you can use to try and avoid mosquitoes. And then use mosquito repellent. There are a lot of different options out there. I'll go through 4 of them, and you can definitely find the right one for you. And then remember, dusk and dawn are the peak mosquito biting times. So if you can avoid being outside at that time or make sure you're taking extra precautions at that time, that would really help to prevent mosquito bites. So we'll go through 4 of the most common EPA-approved repellents just briefly. And I'm sure you've heard of a lot of them, but there are many different kinds, and depending on what you like and what you're going to do, there are some that may be better for you than others. So DEET is a big one. It's very effective against both mosquitoes and ticks. And I do like to point out, even though there are a wide range of concentrations sold on the market, so you can see this little photo I have here says 40% DEET, you really don't need anything higher than 30%. So 20 to 30% is just as effective as something that's a higher concentration. You may just have to reapply it more frequently. So make sure you're looking at the label and following the instructions with whatever repellent you get. And DEET is approved for use on children over 2 months old. It's been extensively tested. Picaridin is one that I really like to mention to people because a lot of people really don't like DEET for various reasons. It does have a very strong smell. It can kind of mess with surfaces and fabrics. So I like to use picaridin. It's just as effective in many side-by-side experiments, but it doesn't have that same strong scent as DEET. So it is a good alternative to DEET for people who really don't want to use DEET. Permethrin is an excellent tool to use, especially for tick prevention. This is not applied to your skin, it's applied to your clothing, and it's good for multiple washes. So if you have clothes that you like to hike in, clothes you like to garden in, anything like that, or if your kids are in a sport and they're playing in the evening at peak biting times, maybe their baseball uniform, softball uniform, you treat your clothing with this product and then you'll be protected. And as I said, it lasts for several washes. Just read those instructions and make sure that you're following the label instructions. And don't forget to apply to your shoes and socks. That's a really big one, especially for ticks because they crawl up from the ground. And for mosquitoes as well, because if you have some that like to bite ankles and they're kind of flying around your ankle, they could get up the leg of your pants. So it's good to protect all the way to the ground. And lastly, I like to mention oil of lemon eucalyptus. So this is one of the best naturally derived repellents. It has the same effectiveness in many studies as about 20 to 30% DEET. It just doesn't have as long of a lasting effect. So you do have to reapply this more frequently. Just again, follow the instructions on the bottle. And it's approved for use on children over 3 years. So this is all information from the EPA. They've approved these repellents and looked into their effectiveness and safeness. And then just some tips. Remember to reapply and follow the directions on the bottle. Don't apply it to your hands or your face. You don't want to get this stuff in your mouth. And apply for young children. So you can put a little on your hand and then rub it on their arms, their legs, wherever you need to protect. Sunscreen and repellent combos are not as effective as using 2 separate products. So apply your sunscreen, apply your bug repellent. And then you don't want to apply it underneath your clothes. You want to apply it to the things that are exposed externally because the mosquitoes are looking for that external area when they land on it. You want to make sure that the repellent is on the outside of your clothes to protect you. And wear, again, loose long sleeves and pants with socks tucked in. So those are my main repellent tips. And I encourage everyone to visit our website. It's norfolkcountymosquito.org. You can put in requests for service on our website. So you can request larviciding in the spring, and you can request adulticiding in the summer. So that's our truck spraying program if you're having a mosquito problem. We also have a lot of other really useful information and resources on there as well. And our spray schedule in the summer is on this map. So Quincy is done on Thursday nights. So if you want to request spraying for that week, you have to make sure that you request it before noon on Thursday. And just a quick review, protect yourself, be vigilant of any symptoms in the summer if you think that you may have contracted a mosquito-borne disease. And now we can have a discussion, and I'll take any questions that you have and give my contact information.
Well, that was very, very interesting. Oh my goodness. So I do have a few questions to ask. So
I can leave
Yeah.
this up for just a minute and then I'll stop
That's great.
sharing. That's
Yeah, that's great. So for people who want to use the permethrin, and you said to apply it on clothing, say it's boys who are playing softball or baseball. So they apply it on their uniforms, but their uniforms are short sleeve.
Yep.
So we recommend applying a separate type of a repellent that can be applied on their exposed skin.
Yes, I would. So the permethrin, you want to also spray it on the clothes when they're not on you. So that's another important, because you don't want to get it on your skin. So if you lay out the uniform, treat it with permethrin, let it dry. You can wear that multiple times without having to reapply. And then every time the kid gets suited up, then you can just apply to the exposed areas something else like DEET or picaridin.
Okay, that's good to know. And it won't stain the clothes?
Permethrin, I would suggest spot testing, but so far I haven't had any issues on anything. Okay. I don't know that I'd put it on, very delicate fabrics like silk. But yeah, it hasn't been an issue for me so far.
Well, okay, I've never heard of that, so that's really good. So as far as the dump and drain, you mentioned, just to make sure you survey your land to see if there's any standing water. For people who are pet owners and they have a little dish, and it happens to have some eggs there, if their pet was to drink that water and drink some of the lava, would that hurt the pet at all?
No, it wouldn't. Yeah, dogs are always eating things off the ground, and cats love to chase things like ants and stuff. It won't hurt them to eat an insect here and there.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know. So what's the busiest time of the year for you, as far as, making sure that everybody, the whole population, is as healthy as possible?
Yeah, all summer long is pretty busy because mosquitoes are active from usually May through October, actually. So we go even beyond the summer season, I would say. And for people worried about contracting diseases, now is, August through October is really the peak time, because it does take a while throughout the summer for those viruses to build in the environment and then spill over into the human population. So usually we start to see human cases later in the summer. We've seen a couple of human cases so far that started late July and early August. But that risk is there through October because mosquitoes are still out and active.
Okay, what type of symptoms would these people be presenting with to their primary care doctor, urgent care, or maybe ER?
Yeah, well, they're both viruses that kind of present in the same way. You'll have flu-like symptoms, headache, tiredness, fever, things like that.
Okay, all right. That's good to know. Now, as far as you shared a slide that had two different types of tropical mosquitoes. How did they get here?
Yeah, well, the Aedes albopictus, the tiger mosquito that is in our area now and has been slowly moving up, it actually moves very well in tires. So tire recycling facilities or tires being moved around from state to state on trucks, the eggs will be laid in the tire and then those tires will get dropped off somewhere else and rain will come and fill the tire and then those eggs will hatch. So that's one very common way that they've been moved around.
Wow. Okay. So how is there a way for people who like to change their tires at home?
Mhm.
What do you recommend for them to do as far as getting rid of those tires?
Well, the only issue for breeding is when the tires are off the rim. So if the rim is in there, then it won't really be collecting water and won't be breeding mosquitoes. So the problem is when they're off the rim. And then there are a lot of different ways of recycling tires. We do have a tire recycling program. We only do it in the off season because we're too busy in the summer. And we do have a limit on how many we can take because we do get a lot of requests from people.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's
And
very
again,
interesting.
they have to be off the rim and outside actually causing a problem. So some people just keep tires in their basement and that's not going to cause an issue.
Okay, that's a good point. Now, you mentioned also that 50, I think in one of your beginning slides was very compelling. Half the death in human history was caused by mosquitoes. That
Yeah.
is crazy. That's crazy. So, when did mosquitoes start coming around in human history? Do you know? And have they become more sophisticated in their evolution to kind of match their hosts?
Yeah, that's a good question. As far as specific, I mean, mosquitoes have been around for a very, very, very long time, as have many insects. And diseases have popped up at different points in time. So a lot of these deaths came a long time ago from the 1800s, the 1700s, 16, from a long hundreds of years ago. And then now, because of the way that we live, we often have screens and things like that to protect ourselves. Those viruses aren't as big of a problem, at least in North America. There still are other areas of the world where mosquito diseases cause a lot of harm and death. But you think about like the Panama Canal, a lot of people were dying from yellow fever. So, and then we had malaria in North America. Well, last summer there was malaria, nothing that I've seen this summer, but in when in the 1800s we had malaria in the mid-Atlantic, so and in Pennsylvania. So we have they've just always been here, I guess. And as far as changing with their hosts, I'm not really sure. I think any of that happened would have happened a long time ago. So
Yeah. It's just so fascinating.
yeah.
I will never look at a mosquito the same way again after talking with you. It's just so fascinating. And as far as the anatomy and the size of the male versus the female is a little bit bigger, you said, and it's the one that bites the host in order
Yep.
for it to reproduce, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, so males just need a little bit of sugar for energy and that's it.
Yeah. So what animals eat mosquitoes? I mean, in the animal kingdom, there's always something that's eating the next
Yeah.
species, right?
Yeah.
So is it birds that eat mosquitoes or?
Yeah, there are a lot of different things that will eat mosquitoes. So in the larval stage, when they're in water, there are a lot of other aquatic insects that eat mosquitoes. Fish also will eat mosquitoes and frogs. So that's one of the reasons why in a larger pond, you don't really have mosquito breeding because there are a lot of other predators in the pond that will help. And that just kind of discourage mosquitoes. They've kind of taken advantage of these small habitats or temporary habitats that don't have things like fish that are going to eat them. As adults, there are a lot of things that will eat mosquitoes. Birds will eat them, bats will eat them, dragonflies will eat them. So yeah, there are a lot of things that will eat a mosquito.
Wow, that's fascinating. It's fascinating. So we're almost at the top of the hour. Is there like one or two or three tips that you want people to come away with. So that way, when they finish watching the program, they can implement these three things.
Yeah, well, we did go over them, but I would say number one is check around your home. Make sure that you're not breeding mosquitoes at home. And number two would be to wear the repellent. Wear repellent, and you can augment if you like to sit outside and you're getting bit, you can kind of augment your space to help. You can use, a screening or something like that, one of those like tent type things. You could also use a strong fan because they're not strong flyers. You could set that up and have it blowing away from you so that they can't get at you. You can wear your repellent. You can do a lot of different things and be creative to avoid those mosquito bites.
Wow.
And then lastly, I'd say just keep checking the state website and make sure that you are aware of what's going on in your area.
Great. Thank you so much, Caitlin. I really appreciate your time with us, and I learned so much, and I'm sure the viewers out there will as well. So I want to thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And I want to thank the Quincy Health Department for sponsoring Aging Strong. And until next time, everybody, stay safe, be well. Bye-bye.